Guys, I'm not exaggerating. This apartment hunting process made me want to give up living in New York. It is as fast-paced and competitive as the rumors have said, but we made it out alive. I'm gonna share with you guys my tips on how to successfully secure an apartment in New York, so let's get started. I'm just gonna get straight into it. I'm living with a roommate, so we were looking for a 2-bedroom apartment, ideally somewhere on the east side of Manhattan with a budget of 4.2 to 4.3K. And as you'll see later in the tours, they were extremely competitive, and a couple of agents told us that they were actually pretty low in inventory. In terms of our deal breakers or what we were actually looking for, first of all is a lot of natural lighting. My roommate and I are both from Southern California, so natural lighting is really important to us. We also ideally wanted laundry in building as well as elevator in building, or just a not too far up walk up, like a second floor walk up, especially when you're moving or carrying groceries. It's really important to have an elevator for those things. Next, going into how to actually apartment hunt in New York. In terms of timing, because the market is so competitive, I would suggest looking a couple months ahead just to see if there are apartment buildings that you would be interested in the neighborhoods that you're targeting, and keep an eye on if units open up. But you're not actually going to find units that are available for your move-in date until 1 month prior, because there's a 1-month notice period in New York. And sometimes there are listings that pop up earlier, but I think the earliest I've seen it pop up is maybe like 1.5 months in advance. So I wouldn't try to seriously start looking until 1 month prior, but it just helps to kind of get yourself familiar with how the market works, especially if you're new to New York, and also just seeing what to expect within a certain price range or budget. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard this, but New York apartment standards are really different from other apartments in terms of how much you pay for what you're getting. And so I think it also helps with that of level setting your expectations. For me, I was apartment hunting as someone who doesn't already live in New York, so I actually took a weekend trip to New York to apartment hunt with my roommate 1 month before our ideal move-in date. And this was super helpful for me because I was just not familiar with the different neighborhoods, and looking 1 month ahead was honestly such an ideal time frame, because at that point you're not feeling super rushed and you're able to see kind of listings that are fresh off the market. But even within the same neighborhood, the vibe could be really different depending on which street you're on, like how busy it is or what's surrounding you. And so I really recommend being able to see these tours in person or getting a friend who lives in the city to check for you. Another thing to note is the New York apartment application process is slightly different from other states. There are a bunch of documents that you need to provide to your application, which I will list right here if you're not familiar with this already. But it's very typical for landlords to request that your income is 40 times the amount of monthly rent. Or you can choose to have a guarantor who is basically kind of just like your legal point of contact, who will guarantee that they will pay the money for you if you don't make that much income. And most apartments require that they need to make 80 times the amount of monthly rent for their income. Another very typical but shocking thing for me as someone who doesn't live in New York is the broker's fee. And this is typically around 15% of the annual rent that they will just charge you up front. And this is just a fee you have to pay as part of the application process if you saw the listing or toured the apartment through a broker. And it is such a sneaky fee because this adds on top of your monthly rent. And so this is where I want to share a underrated tip on how to actually look for apartments. So primarily most of New York uses StreetEasy, which is their version of Zillow or apartments.com, to look for listings. And this is how we scheduled all our apartment tours, but most of these listings are posted by brokers, and so you kind of have to go through the broker's fee. And so what we ended up doing halfway through the weekend that we were apartment hunting is we just started cold calling buildings that we walked by in the neighborhoods we want to live in to see if they had open units. And that's how we found the apartment that we ended up signing. And by directly going to the building, you can bypass that broker's fee that you would have to pay along with your monthly rent. And honestly, it is a little bit more tedious because you're just cold calling buildings, but it is a great way to also check to see if there's open units. And typically, sometimes if you're lucky, they're not even going to be posted yet, and then you can be the first one to view those units. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, the market is pretty competitive and fast-paced, so I really recommend using all avenues buildings that you can, whether it's street AC or cold calling buildings, just to really maximize the chances of finding a listing that you're interested in. And there is a no broker's fee filter on Street Easy, so you can check for listings like that. And another application that my roommate and I used is Open Igloo. It's an application that basically allows you to see anonymous reviews of a building, but that was also really helpful in just gut checking the apartment buildings that we were looking at and seeing honest opinions on just what the actual building is like and the management. Okay, now we're gonna get started with the apartment tours, which you guys have all been waiting for. But the first apartment was priced at $3,600 and it was located in Midtown West. This was the very first apartment we viewed, and it honestly set the tone for the rest of the day because it was pretty bad. Already from the start, there was no natural light in the living room at all, and the video doesn't show it, but the ceiling looked like a classroom ceiling where it's made of these rectangle panels, and the lights were also rectangle panels, and it just gave a really weird vibe to the overall unit. It was a true bedroom with laundry in building and an elevator, so it technically checked off all our boxes, but it did not pass the biggest unspoken standard, which is the vibe check. And this is when I realized how important it is to see these units in person, because you'll get to see how the building is maintained and see how the apartment feels like in person, which could be so different from the listing pictures. The second apartment was priced at $4,495 and it was located on the edge of Midtown and Hell's Kitchen, so basically Hell's Kitchen. The second apartment was out of our budget, but we still wanted to check it out, and this building was actually pretty nice. The overall building was clean and quiet, and the first thing I noticed about this unit was how much natural lighting it had. It just made the whole apartment seem really bright and charming. The rooms themselves were not that spacious, but they each had closets, and the nice thing about this apartment is they have a flat fee of $150 for utilities, which is clutch in the summer when you're blasting that AC. Sadly, it was out of our budget, but it gave me a good sense of what a unit would look like in this price range. So for the third apartment, it was priced at $39.50 and it was located in East Village. This unit was located east of Tompkins Square Park, so already the location was not ideal because it was further away from the subway line. It was a third floor walk-up and the building was pretty old with no laundry in building. The unit itself was not bad. It had two reasonably sized bedrooms with natural light, and they're on opposite sides of the apartment, which is also nice for privacy. But given the location of this apartment, as well as no laundry or elevator in building, we did not consider applying to this unit. The next apartment is actually my favorite apartment that we toured the first day, and it was priced at $42.50, located in Kips Bay. And this was in our budget, but with the broker's fee, it bumped our monthly rent up, so it became a little too expensive for us. But this unit was in a larger apartment building that felt really safe. The bedrooms were small and kind of weirdly shaped, but they were both bright and had beautiful views of the city and the World Trade Center, which was crazy. I loved that. All of the appliances were upgraded and there was laundry in building, but again, this was out of our budget due to the broker's fee, so we didn't end up applying. A small tip here, but if they have laundry in building, I would check out that room just to see how well managed it is and also how much they charge for laundry machines. All right, the next apartment is my least favorite apartment for multiple reasons, but this was priced at $4,000 and located in East Village. First of all, it was located on a 6th floor walk-up, and the apartment just felt extremely cramped with little to no lighting. There was laundry in unit, but that was honestly their only selling point. Also, a sad reality of looking for 2-bedroom apartments is usually one room is a lot bigger than the other, which was the case with this unit. But the smaller room had essentially no natural light, and that was really important to both me and my roommate. It was also located on a super busy street, so I felt like it was going to be noisy at night, and the vibes were just extremely off, so we did not consider this unit. The next apartment is priced at $37.50 and it was located in Greenwich Village. It was actually located in a really cute area, but it was pretty similar to the previous apartment that we toured in that it was just way too cramped and one bedroom was a lot bigger than the other. The smaller room essentially was facing a shaft, so it didn't get any natural lighting. And if you look at the bathroom, it also felt pretty cramped. And if you can see, the shower is like hidden in this this little corner, and I honestly did not understand how the previous tenants were able to fit in there, but somehow they did. So that was our first day of apartment hunting, and it was honestly pretty bad, and that's when we started questioning all our life decisions and rethinking what we wanted in an apartment. But I think that was honestly one of the hardest parts of this apartment hunting process, was that we saw a lot of nice units that we liked that were technically in our budget of 4.2 to 4.3k, but if you factor in the broker's fee, it bumped up the rent by a couple $100s, and that made it out of our budget. And so it was really sad because all the units that we liked were then out of our budget. And one option that my roommate and I had not really been considering was getting a 1-bed flex bedroom, because both rooms actually get a lot of good lighting usually, because one is a true 1-bedroom with windows, and then the other is the living room, which is just flexed into a temporary bedroom, and that typically has light as well because the living room has a lot of windows. And so we started looking at those type of units as well. So the next day we started our tour in Midtown with this apartment priced at $3,900. This was located really close to Times Square, which felt way too busy for me and my roommate. The unit itself was not bad with in-unit laundry, but we saw that there were mice complaints on Open Igloo for this building. So we asked the tenants there, and they confirmed that they had a couple mice problems, so we immediately crossed this apartment off. The next apartment was located near K-Town in this really busy area of Midtown, priced at $44.95, but the building itself was really nice with amenities like a gym. This was a 1-bed with a flex bedroom, but the true 1-bedroom was facing a shaft, and the tenant there actually told us that's why she's moving out, because she got no natural light. And the nice thing about touring with tenants present is being able to ask them their honest experience with the apartment, and so we did that with any chance we got, but this unit was out of our budget, so we did not apply. Now, this next apartment was also one of my favorite apartments we toured, and it was out of budget for us, priced at $4,400, located in Murray Hill. But this was actually a 1-bedroom where we would have to pay an additional $1K to get a flex wall installed. I like that the kitchen and bathroom both had windows for ventilation, and all the appliances were renovated. It just had that charming New York apartment vibe to it, but it was extremely out of our budget, especially with the flex wall installation and broker's fees, so we did not apply. This was the last apartment we toured on the second day, and this was priced at $4,200 in Kips Bay. And this unit also hit all of our boxes with elevator in building, laundry in unit, and it had 2 flex bedrooms that both got lots of natural light, and both rooms had built-in closets, which is pretty huge in New York. The living room and kitchen were also a good size, and if you can tell from the video, there were a lot of people at this apartment showing, and I think this unit went immediately the next day. But with the broker's fee, this unit was also out of our budget. So you guys may be curious which apartment we ended up applying to and getting, and I had mentioned that this was actually an apartment that we just randomly saw on the street. And so when we were touring one of the buildings on the second day, we actually just ended up walking around because we had some time, and we saw a sign outside of the building that said open units with no fee. So we just ended up calling them, and they had a unit available for us that was a 1-bed flex opening up at our ideal move-in date, which was crazy, and it was in our budget. I wasn't able to tour it because it was open for touring the next week, and so my roommate went in person and we immediately applied and signed. And I think that's the thing about New York apartments, is that you're not really gonna get everything you want. There is something you kind of have to sacrifice, and for us, we were willing to not get a true 2-bedroom and instead look for a 1-bed with a flex. But for you, it might be different on what you're willing to give up versus what you're willing to prioritize. But I will say this process really made me think a lot about what I want to prioritize in my living space. And as long as you know those priorities, I think it will help you a lot in just the overall apartment hunting process. But overall, I feel extremely grateful with this apartment unit that we found, and I'm really excited to show you all how it looks like and the whole moving process. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.